The year was 2045. In the neon-drenched sprawl of Neo Viridia, the line between human and hardware was usually drawn with a surgeon's scalpel. But Leo, 17 and desperate for an edge, had bypassed the clinics. He had spent 6 months' worth of credit on the dark web for a prototype listed only as the Oculus Biosynthetic Seer. The package arrived in a vacuum-sealed obsidian crate. When Leo pried it open, the device didn't look like the plastic VR goggles of the past. It was a sleek, undulating band of iridescent metal that seemed to pulse with a faint rhythmic light. It felt warm, almost like skin, and smelled faintly of ozone and salt water. The Fusion Leo sat on the edge of his bed, heart hammering. He pulled the band over his head. The moment the internal padding touched his temples, the metal liquefied.
Wait, what the?
Microfilaments, thinner than human hair, surged out from the device. They didn't just sit on his skin, they hungrily sought his pores. Leo let out a strangled scream as he felt the nanotendrils lace through his cheekbones and wrap around his optic nerves. The device tightened, its frame fusing directly into the bone of his skull. He fought it, clawing at the sleek surface, but his fingers found no purchase. The pain was a white-hot spike behind his eyes, a rhythmic thrumming that matched his frantic heartbeat. Then, with a wet, mechanical click, the pressure equalized. The pain vanished, replaced by a terrifying, absolute silence. A new reality. Leo opened his eyes. He wasn't looking at his bedroom anymore. He was looking at a masterpiece of data. The Oculus didn't just show him the world, it deconstructed it. His vision was a crystalline overlay of shifting spectrums, thermal layer. He could see the heat blooming in the walls from the copper wiring. Spectrum shift. With a blink, the room shifted into ultraviolet, revealing old stains and hidden microscopic dust motes. Predictive analysis. A red reticle hovered over his bedroom door. A text crawl appeared. Probability of entry. Parental unit. 84%. Estimated time, 120 seconds. System status, sync 100%. Power source, bioelectric kinetic draw. He felt a strange, steady drain on his stamina, like he'd just run a mile. The Oculus was feeding on his body's own electricity. It was a parasite, but one that gave him the powers of a god. The architect's vision. Deep in an underwater bunker off the coast, a group of biopunks, renegade scientists who believed evolution was too slow, watched a monitor flicker to life.
Subject Zoo 9 is online.
They weren't just selling toys, they were seeding the world with the next stage of humanity. Backed by alliances from beyond the stars, they viewed the human body as an unfinished basement. The Oculus was the first floor. The first spark. A shadow flickered outside Leo's window. A drone, likely a debt collector bot from the dark web vendor, hovered there to ensure the delivery was successful.
Threat detected. Unauthorized surveillance. Countermeasure. Charging.
Leo felt a surge of heat rush from his chest, up his neck, and pool into his forehead. It felt like holding a lightning bolt behind his teeth. Instinctively, he stared at the drone. A beam of concentrated violet light erupted from the center of the Oculus. It didn't just melt the drone, it vaporized it instantly, leaving nothing but a scorch mark on the air. Leo slumped against the wall, gasping for air, his vision swimming. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. He had wanted a gadget to play games. Instead, he had become the weapon. Leo didn't have time to process the smoking wreckage of the drone. His vision flashed a jagged amber warning. Bio-reserves critical, 14%. The laser blast had drained him. His muscles felt like lead, and a cold sweat broke out across his skin.
Suddenly, the Oculus didn't just show him data. It spoke. Not into his ears, but directly into his consciousness via bone conduction. Deep breaths. Subject 09. The first discharge is always taxing on the mitochondria.
The invitation. A set of coordinates burned themselves into his retinas, glowing with a soft cyan hue. A waypoint marker hovered in the distance, cutting through the walls of his apartment and the skyscrapers of Neo Viridia.
We are the architects of the new flesh. The vendor you bought this from was a front. We don't sell to customers, Leo. We recruit pioneers. Walk. If you stop moving, your heart rate will drop. and the Oculus will enter emergency draw mode. You don't want to know what it harvests when electricity runs low.
Terrified, Leo stumbled out of his room and into the rain-slicked streets. The biopunk den. He followed the waypoint for 3 miles, his body feeling lighter with every step as the nanotech began pumping synthetic adrenaline into his bloodstream to keep him moving. He eventually reached the Undercity, a sub-level graveyard of rusted maglev trains and forgotten industry. Behind a door reinforced with scrapped carbon fiber sat the biohacker cell. The room was a cathedral of high-tech heresy. Dozens of monitors hung from the ceiling by bundles of vein wires, cables that pulsed with glowing blue fluid. Sitting around a circular table were 4 individuals. They didn't look human. One had translucent skin revealing shifting LED arrays. Another had 4 multi-jointed arms working on a motherboard. The leader, a woman named Vex, stood up. Her eyes were gone, replaced by a wraparound visor identical to Leo's, but hers hummed with a deep, seasoned power. The revelation.
You're early. Most people spend the first hour trying to pry it off with a kitchen knife. You? You use the beam. You have a natural affinity for the draw.
Take it off me.
I can't, and you don't want me to. Look up, Leo. Not with your eyes, with the Oculus. They are the alliances. They've been here for decades, helping us skip 1,000 years of slow evolution. The governments think we're just hackers. They don't realize we're building an army capable of seeing and fighting the things that truly run this world.
The Choice Vex handed him a glass of thick, glowing green liquid, a bionutrient slurry.
Drink. You need to recharge, she commanded. The drone you shot down belonged to the Consensus. They're the ones who want to keep humans as base models, weak, blind, and easy to control. They're coming for that hardware, Leo. They'll kill you just to scrape it off your skull.
Leo looked at the slurry, then at the predictive HUD in his vision. A new timer had appeared. Consensus enforcers arriving in 0452.
You have 2 choices, Vex said, her extra limbs unfolding behind her, crackling with bioelectricity. You can run and die a human, or you can stay, let us finish your calibration, and become a god of the spectrum.
Leo looked at the timer. He felt the power of the Oculus humming against his brain, offering him a world of infinite data and light. He reached for the glass. Leo downed the nutrient slurry in one go. It tasted like copper and electricity, but the effect was instantaneous. A warm surge flooded his limbs, and the HUD in his vision flared from a dim amber to a brilliant, aggressive violet.
Bio reserves 98%. Combat protocols initialized.
They're here, Vex said, her voice dropping an octave. She didn't look at the door, she looked at the ceiling.
The breach. The heavy reinforced door didn't open. It shattered. A thermobaric charge blew the hinges inward, followed by 3 spheres that hissed out thick, gray, zero-vis smoke. To a normal human, the room was now an impenetrable void. To Leo, the world turned into a wireframe blueprint. Through the Oculus, the smoke was invisible, but the heat signatures of the 3 Consensus enforcers were blinding. They moved with mechanical precision, wearing matte black exosuits designed to crush bone.
Predictive overlay active.
A ghost-like image of the lead enforcer appeared a split second before the man actually moved. Leo saw the soldier's intent to raise his rifle before the muscle even moved. He ducked a burst of high-velocity rounds that hissed through the space his head had occupied milliseconds prior. He felt a strange drag in his mind, like he was pulling a heavy weight. The Oculus was overclocking his nervous system, slowing down his perception of time.
Don't just dodge, feed the lens.
Leo focused on the center enforcer. He didn't just look. He willed his internal energy toward his face. He felt the Oculus's nanofilaments vibrate against his skull, acting like a transformer for his body's bioelectricity.
Target locked. Vital core. Warning, neural strain imminent.
A beam of violet light, thinner and more concentrated than the first, lanced out. It bypassed the Enforcer's heavy chest plating, finding the microscopic gap in the suit's neck seal. The soldier didn't even scream. He simply collapsed as his suit's electronics were fried from the inside out. The synchronized strike. The other two Enforcers pivoted, their HUDs struggling to track Leo's heat signature. The Oculus was actually venting his body heat in pulses to confuse their sensors.
Leo at 4 o'clock, one of the biopunks yelled.
Leo didn't turn his head. He didn't have to. The Oculus provided a 360-degree tactical map in the corner of his eye. He reached back, grabbed a heavy piece of scrap metal, and threw it. The predictive HUD guided his hand, calculating the wind resistance and the Enforcer's projected path. The metal caught the soldier in the visor, cracking the reinforced glass. As the Enforcer stumbled, Leo closed the distance. He felt a cold, calculated calm. He slammed his palm against the soldier's chest piece.
Direct discharge, 15% output.
A massive spark of blue-white energy jumped from Leo's skin through the Oculus's conductive metal, overloading the Enforcer's exosuit. The soldier was thrown back 10 feet, his armor sparking and smoking. The aftermath. The third Enforcer, seeing his squad decimated by a teenager in a hoodie, triggered a manual retreat. He threw a flashbang, but the Oculus instantly polarized, darkening Leo's vision to protect his retinas. By the time the light cleared, the Enforcer was gone. The room fell silent, save for the hum of the vein wires. Leo stood in the center of the wreckage, his chest heaving. His skin felt sensitive, almost raw, as the nanotech receded slightly back into his pores to rest. Vex walked over, her 4 mechanical arms folding neatly behind her back. She looked at the fallen Enforcers, then back at Leo.
You're not just a carrier for the tech, Leo. You're a natural conductor. Most people's hearts give out after the second blast. Yours seems to be getting stronger.
Leo looked at his hands. He could see the faint glow of his own veins through his skin. He wasn't a kid from the slums anymore. He was a node in a global, invisible network. Vex smiled, and the Oculus displayed a new set of coordinates. This time, they weren't in the city. They were pointing toward a hidden launch facility in the desert.
Now, we go to the source. The alliances want to meet their best investment.
The Oasis of Glass. They reached the coordinates, a shimmering salt flat in the middle of the Mojave. At first, there was nothing. Then, Vex tapped a sequence into her wrist comm, and the air itself began to ripple. A massive structure emerged from a cloaking field. It wasn't built of concrete or steel. It looked like a giant translucent nautilus shell made of living glass, pulsing with a soft, bioluminescent gold.
The cradle, Vex whispered. This is where the alliances anchor.
The meeting of two worlds. As they entered the spire, the temperature dropped and the air smelled of ozone and blooming jasmine. Leo's Oculus went into overdrive.
Unknown data architecture detected. Attempting translation.
In the center of the hall stood 3 figures. They were tall, nearly 8 feet, and moved with a fluid grace that defied gravity. Their bodies weren't solid. They were composed of shifting lattices of light and biomatter that looked like liquid mercury. They didn't have faces, but as Leo approached, their forms shifted to mimic a human silhouette to put him at ease.
Subject 09, the conductor.
The true purpose. One of the beings reached out a hand. It didn't touch Leo. Instead, it hovered inches from the Oculus. A stream of data, pure, raw information, flowed between the device and the alien. Leo's vision exploded. He saw the history of the alliances. They weren't conquerors, but gardeners. They had traveled the stars looking for species capable of surviving the Great Filter, a coming cosmic event that would wipe out any civilization tied strictly to biology.
They aren't just giving us tech, they're turning us into a bridge. We're the link between carbon and light.
Your world is ending, Leo. Not by our hand, but by its own entropy. The consensus you fought, they represent the old way. They want to hoard the past. We offer the future, but the integration requires a price.
The upgrade.
Evolutionary override initiated integrating star cell core.
The Oculus grew. expanding from a mere visor into a crown of light that merged with his forehead. His skin began to take on the same iridescent sheen as the aliens. The bioelectricity in his body surged, no longer just a power source, but a weaponized aura. Suddenly, a red alert flashed at the edge of his new infinite vision.
Planetary scan. Consensus orbital strike detected. Time to impact, 120 seconds.
They've tracked us. The consensus. They'd rather burn this whole desert than let you evolve.
The Ascension. Leo looked up. He could see the satellite in low Earth orbit, a cold piece of human machinery preparing to fire a kinetic slug that would vaporize the cradle. He didn't feel fear. He felt the vast power of the Alliance flowing through the Oculus, through his veins and out through his fingertips.
They're too late.
He planted his feet on the living glass floor. The Oculus hummed a low, vibrating note that shook the foundations of the spire. He wasn't just a teenager from Neo Viridia anymore. He was the first of a new species. He looked toward the sky, and for the first time, he didn't just fire a laser, he launched himself. Leo didn't use a rocket. He didn't need one. As the kinetic slug descended from the heavens, a telephone pole-sized rod of tungsten traveling at Mach 10, Leo's body erupted in a shroud of violet-white plasma. The Oculus had finished its rewrite. His cells were now semi-solid light. With a thunderous crack that shattered every pane of glass in the desert for 10 miles, Leo pierced the atmosphere. The breach. The friction of the air would have incinerated any other human, but the Oculus projected a teardrop-shaped bioshield around him. Through the visor, the sky turned from blue to the deep velvet black of the void. Altitude, 100,000 meters. Target acquired. Consensus orbital platform, Judicator. The tungsten rod screamed past him, missing him by mere inches. Leo didn't flinch. He adjusted his trajectory with a thought, his bioelectricity acting as a reaction thruster. Below him, the desert looked like a marble. Above him, the Judicator satellite loomed, a brutalist, jagged tooth of steel and railguns. The orbital dance. The satellite's automated defenses recognized the threat. Hundreds of point defense lasers bloomed like deadly flowers in the dark. Leo's vision fractured into 1,000 subscreens. The Oculus was calculating the path of every single photon before it was even fired. He moved through the barrage like a ghost, his body blurring in and out of the physical plane. Energy levels, 400%, ambient solar draw active. He reached the hull of the Judicator. Instead of punching it, Leo landed softly on the metal skin. He pressed his palms against the cold steel.
You wanted to keep humanity in the dark, Leo whispered, his voice carrying through the vacuum via the Oculus's broad-spectrum transmission. Now, I'm turning on the lights.
The Great Discharge. He didn't fire a laser beam this time. He opened his internal gates. Leo's entire body became a conduit for the Alliance energy flowing from the cradle below. A massive pulse of biosynthetic EMP, electromagnetic pulse, surged from his chest, through the Oculus, and into the satellite's core. The Judicator didn't explode. It transformed. The metal began to glow, melting and reshaping itself under the influence of the nanotech Leo was projecting. The dark web virus had become a planetary-scale update. Across the globe, every screen controlled by the consensus flickered. They didn't see static. They saw what Leo saw. They saw the lattice, the alliances, and the infinite potential of the human spirit when fused with the stars. The New Horizon. The satellite, now a shimmering ring of iridescent crystal, became Leo's throne. He sat in the silence of space, watching the sunrise hit the Earth's curve.
System status Ascension complete. New mission, Shepherd the Awakening.
Down on Earth, Vex and the biopunks looked up to see a new star burning in the daytime sky. The dark web hackers had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They hadn't just sold a piece of gear, they had cracked the shell of the human egg. Leo looked out toward Jupiter, where the Oculus detected even larger signatures, vast, ancient civilizations waiting for a formal introduction. For the first time since the package had arrived at his door, Leo wasn't afraid. He closed his eyes, and through the Oculus, he watched the world finally wake up.